Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first session in the Beyond the Screen series, When Screens Hijack Emotions. I am your host, Latasha G, the socially savvy mentor, and I am the founder and CEO of I Speak for You Now. So, at I Speak for You Now, we work with teens, families, schools, community organizations to help young teens build healthy relationships online and offline. Our work focuses on strengthening communication, emotional awareness, and digital wellness. And we are grounded in what's called the savvy framework because we want our teens to be socially savvy. And we do that by helping them build self awareness and how they're showing up in spaces. We help them show up in spaces authentically by using their voices. And we help them realize their values and put those values into action so that they can have an impact. And that impact is a meaningful and lasting impact. So many of us already know that digital life is affecting our teens in so many ways. So this series isn't about pointing blame, pointing fingers, but we want to deepen the awareness and create spaces for ongoing conversations, not just for the adults, but also for the teens, so we can better support them to become stronger uh, advocates for themselves. So today we're starting with understanding what's happening emotionally and physically when screens begin to hijack our emotions. Oh, that leads us into our conversation, and I'm excited to welcome our guest, Inez Johnson, who is an allied health educator and health and wellness consultant. And she is with Hope Extension Incorporated. So, Inez, can you tell us a little about yourself and the work that you do?
Sure. I've been in the healthcare field for like over 30 years. I worked as a clinical healthcare professional. I think 20 of those years I worked as a healthcare educator. And I think like 8 of those years, I'm not trying to tell my age or anything, but 8 of those years, for the past 8 years, I've been more into health and wellness as working as a health and wellness practitioner. I currently work as a behavioral health facilitator with Lumina Care. Shout out to Lumina. Um, but so I have um, Hope Extension. Then I also have I'm the founder of Nez Vital Healing, which is I kind of provide, it kind of focuses in on stress and how it affects the digestive system and that. But I thought about, just as a whole, integrating clinical health care with holistic wellness. So
Okay.
through advocacy, education, and just, healthcare practices. So I'm excited.
Okay, thank you for being here. And I am honored to have you in this space so we can get ready to dive in. I want to honor the time and our participants and welcome participants and thank you for engaging in this conversation with us. So, the first thing I want to dive into, because we're talking about how screens hijack our teens, what's happening in their bodies when they're constantly exposed to screens and social media?
Okay, so I think the first thing we have to get a better understanding, hone in on what's called the nervous system. And you hear, you know of the nervous system, but basically the nervous system is the body's communication or control system, sort of like the electrical wiring and message system of the body. So nervous system sends messages from the brain to the body, receives information from senses, touch, if something's hot, things like that. It basically tells the body what to do and when to do it. Nervous system helps with movement, decision making, breathing, controls the breathing, and just helps us to react to hot, cold, things like that. So I wanted to start off with the nervous system. Um, and what happens is uh, you have the screens. Kids are on screen time, and what happens is it takes our body. Our body has like a natural defense mechanism. So our body is designed to defend itself, and so the body's automatic clinical response is fight or flight. And I know you've heard of fight or flight.
Yeah.
So screens kind of so think about fight or flight. If you have a child and your baby is playing by the stairway and they get too close and they fall, you immediately respond. You go into fight or flight immediately. And so that's what screen time does to the brain. It keeps the brain in constant alert. So when our kids are on their phones, on screen time, that's what happens. So can you imagine constantly being in the fight or flight? Think about a time when something happened and you responded quickly and you were in this state, you know,
Yes.
put over, I got put over.
Right.
Just, and you think about, you have to calm down because your body reacts because it has to defend itself. That's what it knows to do. And then when you think about where we are right now, think about the teenagers, the kids. They're exposed more. If they're constantly in fight or flight, they're exposed more in an hour. And then you think about us when we were at those ages, they experienced more more simulation in an hour than we experienced in a day back in our day, so that's what happens. Screens keep the brain in constant fight or flight state of alert. Every notification, every message spikes what's called cortisol, and cortisol is like the stress hormone in our bodies. And so those things lead to physical responses: anxiety, irritability, mood swings, emotional outbursts. So it's not misbehavior. First thing we think, they got an attitude problem, That's the first thing we think. But it's not just misbehavior. It's what's called stress biology, the way your body physically responds to stress. So I'll
Okay.
stop.
Okay. We're diving in, and I love it because we typically associate the attitudes with disrespect and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So there's a sense of biology to this, not just behavior. And so sometimes we as adults, we're reacting to symptoms and not the causes. And
Mm-hmm.
so we wanted, that's why I wanted to open this up, because sometimes there's a root cause to these reactions and not just it being disrespectful, right?
Right.
So let's keep the conversation going and let's talk about the dopamine and addiction. So how does dopamine make social media so hard for teens to step away from?
Excuse me. So dopamine is another chemical that the brain produces. It's a chemical that helps you feel motivated, helps you feel focused, helps you feel rewarded after you do something. It helps you want to do things when you have the right amount of dopamine that's produced. And it gives you that feeling of satisfaction after you do something. So it motivates you. It basically helps you feel good when you achieve things, right?
Mm.
Okay, so each scroll, each like, each notification triggers dopamine. And I mean, even in adults. And it's like the reward chemical, you know. Over time, the brain craves that stimulation. You can be, you can post a picture, and I'm guilty of that. I'll post a picture, and then I could be about to go to bed, and I gotta go see. I gotta go look and see.
Yes.
Then
Yes.
it's not just you see the likes, but then you got to go in and see who liked mine.
Yes.
We're guilty of that. So can you imagine
Uh-huh.
what the teens go through? So basically, over time, like each notification triggers dopamine, um, and over time, the brain craves that stimulation. Teens feel bored, numb, because first thing we want to do, like, okay, you're not going to have your phone, and we take the phone away. And then when they don't have their phone, or if they forget their phone, or if their phone is off, or they lose their phone and they're waiting on a new phone, they get those feelings of boredom. They feel numb. They feel low without their phone. They need more screen time to feel good. So just a key takeaway with this part of it, just I say that's what makes it feel addictive, because it chemically is addictive. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
Okay. So I want to address our audience and type in the chat or leave a comment if you're watching the replay. What concerns you the most about teen screen use right now? What's concerning you the most? If you're even if you're not a parent, if you're just an educator who works with kids, or you have a community organization and you're seeing the teens that you serve, or if you're a teacher and these teens are coming into your classrooms. I know there's a lot of talk about schools banning phone use, and they're having a hard time getting phones out of these kids' hands. So, what's concerning to you about the screen time that teens are using? Type that in the chat or leave a comment if you're watching the replay. Okay, so let's keep the conversation going. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is sleep disruption, because I know sometimes, and you mentioned the comments and the likes and all of that, and there have been studies that shows that when you look at your screen before bed, it's hard for you to go into that sleep mode. It's hard for you to even wind down. It actually arouses you, and that your brain does not shut down, but it goes into that the working mode, right?
Yep.
So how does screen time actually affect teen sleep and their emotional health?
So you have what's called blue light. That's what the screens give off. It's the high, and I'll define it. The blue light is the high energy light from screens that tells the brain it's daytime, even when it's not daytime.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at your phone before you go to bed, your brain thinks it's morning. Your brain thinks it's daylight, but your body, because our body goes into homeostasis at night. Basically, the body begins to shut down to prepare itself for the next day. So if your body is in homeostasis mode, thinking that it's time to shut down, and your brain, oh no, it's daytime. Hello. So that's pretty much what happens. The blue light, it affects the sleep hormone, which is melatonin.
Okay.
So the blue light blocks melatonin, and basically causes insomnia, because you're laying there, you can't go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find yourself scrolling. And then it creates eye strain, headaches, because you're tired the next day, fatigue. Without quality sleep, teens experience, anger, depression, poor focus. They can't focus properly on schoolwork, or they react a different way, risk taking behaviors, things of that nature. Um, so just know, a tired brain can't regulate emotions.
Right. So, so I also want to point out that lack of sleep shows up as mood swings.
Yep.
We think we're dealing with a moody teen, and it could be because they haven't had any sleep, and because we allow them to go to bed with their phones, or they've been scrolling for hours and hours and hours before bed, so they haven't had a chance to wind down. So sometimes we're seeing exhaustion and not just attitude, a moody attitude having teenager, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that leads us into emotional regulation, because sometimes we know that these mood swings can cause them to become hyper aroused, and it's hard for them to regulate their emotions. So, how does that constant digital stimulation affect emotional control?
So um, our brain is like made up of different regions. Different areas of our brain control things, right? Decision making, emotions, and things of that nature. So we have an area called let me make sure I say it right, the amygdala. The amygdala, right? The
Oh, the amygdala.
amygdala.
Yeah.
Thank you, teacher. I never had to say it, and I've been in healthcare all my life. Amygdala. So that is the area that controls the emotional brain. And
Okay.
then you have the prefrontal cortex. That's the area of the brain that's basically the logical brain area. So overstimulation activates the amygdala, And the amygdala is like your emotional alarm system.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so as it relates to teens, that causes them to overreact in situations. You go to the drive-through and you ask for no salt, and then you get there and there's a lot of salt on your fries, and then you tell that teenager that's in the drive-through window, you know, the issue, and you know, you know, all these, you know, these they react, you know, which what we say attitude, but you know, those are the things that we have to take into consideration, and it's hard sometimes, you know, but they struggle with self-control. They feel overwhelmed easily. So those are the main things as relates to emotional regulation.
Okay.
And again,
So
and again, it's not I'm sorry, it's not dysregulation. Actually, it is dysregulation. It's not defiance, is what I want to say.
Yes, yes.
Not defiance. It's just dysregulation. So I wanted to add that in there.
So this social media, constant exposure to it, is just causing emotional overload.
Exactly.
And so when they're faced with something that seems opposing to, or even a correction. Yep. So something that I've noticed in the teens that I work with is I could correct them on something, and it's something very little. And so I get either they shut down or they get very upset. Mm-hmm. I've had students walk out because they don't know how to articulate how they're feeling. And so opening up the space to allow them to articulate those feelings, giving them the strategies to do that, is what we're all about. So I want to address our wonderful audience and those of you who are watching in the replay. Have you noticed emotional changes in teens connected to screen time? Have you noticed those changes? And if you have, what have you noticed about them? Do you notice that they're more defensive when even if it's a moment where they shouldn't even be defensive? Are they giving those responses that seem like they're unwarranted? Like, why are you reacting like this? And then did you make that connection with, because they've been on this screen and because they're over aroused, because they are not able to regulate those emotions naturally because of the amount of screen time that they have? So leave those comments and let me know what you think. Let's keep going. Let's talk about the physical health aspect. I know sometimes when we think about social media and taking it in, we think that it's just a mental thing. We think that it's just affecting us mentally, maybe emotionally, but this is a holistic thing, because social media can also affect the physical side of teens. So what physical effects should we as adults notice in teens when it comes to social media?
I want you to picture this in your mind. So picture the brain as being the boss of the body. And then the spinal cord, that's where all the nerves are. The spinal cord, picture the spinal cord being the main highway, you know, the way things transition, right? And then think of nerves. The nerves are the wiring that send messages throughout the body. Okay, so as relates to physical health, chronic screen stress can cause headaches, digestive issues. You know, stress triggers so many things. Muscle tension. We have nerves in our muscles that tell us things. You know, we have nerves we have what's called sphincter muscles in our digestive system and in our oh my God, our excretory system. So what causes us to use the bathroom? We know that something tells. We know if it's what type of bowel movement we're going to have. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we have nerves that tell us things, and
right.
so the nerves in our muscles affect, it can cause muscle tension. It can cause poor posture, you know, um, weakened immunity system. It weakens your immunity system. Stress does. You had a team that's always getting sick, always getting a cold. Well, they're under a lot of stress. There's a lot of stressors piled up on each other, in their body, and it has weakened their immune system. It causes hormonal imbalance. So those are the main things. And then just know stress affects everybody's system. Everybody's system.
So headaches,
Yep.
tension, fatigue, and even inactivity.
Yep.
Because when they're scrolling, they don't want to be active. And remember, when we were growing up, we were encouraged to go outside and play.
Yeah.
Teens, you don't see them going outside and playing a whole lot the way that we used to. So digital habits don't just affect us mentally and emotionally. It also affects us physically as well, the whole body. So now that we've had these conversations about how this social media, it's hijacking our teens, let's talk about what we can do realistically as adults and how we can support our teens.
So what adults can do, we can create nervous system breaks. Allow
Okay.
breaks. A few examples: no screens for 60 minutes before bedtime. 60 minutes.
Challenge.
Device-free meal. So it's dinner time, no phones, and we can make it a family thing. Mm-hmm. Let's put our phones in this basket. You know, um, outdoor time daily. Spend some time, no phones, just sometimes outside of the house. There may be things in the house that prompt you to get your phone, but do some things outside. Let's go for a walk. Let's just, let's do something outside of the house without the phones.
Right.
Another thing, teach regulation tools. So this takes me into your breathing, deep breathing exercises. Our kids pay attention to things. You know what I mean? So we could practice deep breathing techniques, stretching. Let's stretch this morning. Or honey, when you feel, because if we catch the kids like teenagers, that's a whole different, it flips a little bit. But when we got them, when they're younger and they're still spongy and they can absorb things that we say, let's do some journaling together. Yeah. Let's do some stretching together. Let's do some aerobics. Let's listen to some music. Mm-hmm. Let's listen to some music. If you got a record player, let's listen to some music the old school way. Let's listen to, let's find some music, a music station, just listen to music together. Talk about this music. And then, I don't know where everybody is as it relates to religion and things like that, but prayer is always a way of mindfulness, and let's pray. Let's take this time, no phones, let's just pray. Let's pray together. And then the last thing I want to say, as adults, as educators, as mentors, as parents, let's model calm. Let's model calm. These kids watch us. They learn emotional safety by watching us. Mm-hmm. I'm getting excited here. But kids that, they watch us. So like I said, if we catch them in that state of mind where they're still influential, we catch them at the right time. And it's all about our approach too.
Yes.
Model calm. Model calm. When we regulate the nervous system, we regulate emotions. Screens don't change, they don't just change behavior, they change biology. And then we restore balance. When we restore balance, we restore peace. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'll stop.
Okay, so we had Shantae raise her hand. Shantae, do you want to come off mute so you can ask your question, or would you just like me to address your comment that you made in the chat? Because she brought up a really good point.
Mhm.
She said that parents using the iPhones and iPads as babysitters, and
So,
I've seen it a lot. So, Shantae, are you off mute?
so yes, I was asking you to address that. How do when they allow their kids to use their iPhones and iPads as babysitters? I'm sorry, my voice is a mess. Yes, can you address that? Because a lot of people shove their iPhones and iPads in their kids' faces so that they can be on their phones
Mhm.
or hanging with their friends or whatever the situation is, so that they don't disturb them.
Right.
What
And
is
I've
the
seen, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Just address that.
So I would say one thing that I try to do, especially when I'm busy doing my work, is I try to give my son, my youngest son, he's 6 years old. I try to give him activities to do. Like he likes to read. Some kids don't like to read. So find out the things that hold your child's attention that's away from that phone. So he likes to draw. So I encourage that. And then he he says, I'm an artiste. That's what he calls himself. So if we nurture the things that interest our children, even if they're on YouTube Kids or something like that, and you see that they're watching certain types of videos, and take that and then make it their own. And then once you allow them, and you have to be okay with them making a mess, because then you teach them how to clean up. So you're building skills on top of giving them an alternative besides the social media. So he loved cars. And so I just went out and I bought him a lot of cars. He started liking trains and things like that. So I always say, if I want to model, if I want to be the model for him, and I don't want him to always be on his screen, then I have to give him an alternative to that. So getting to know what your kids like and nurturing that and encouraging them to explore it more, and then not being afraid to allow them to make those messes, and then teaching them to clean up after themselves after they make the mess. If it comes to that, you're building skills that's outside of the screen time. So as a parent, that's what I would do. And then as an educator, I always get to know my students and what drives them. What do you want to be when you grow up? Okay, so let's turn this into a research project. So even though they're using a screen to research, but they're using it in a way that's more productive, right? So just for those busy parents, find the things that interest your child and then nurture those things. Give them an alternative, something that they'll be like, okay, this is worth my time. And that puts me into my summer programs, my digital detox summer retreats. That's what we do. We do things that don't require social media, but that takes us taking time to actually talk to our teens, right? Because if we don't give them that space, if we don't give them the voice, we never know what they like. We never know what's on their minds. And we have to do it in a non judgmental way, because teens are not the way that we were when we were coming up. And that's the reality. We have to let go of that control. So, what about the parents that are always on their phones as well? And I think that's what Inez was talking about, modeling that balance, right? So, if we as parents, as adults, want our teens to put their phones down for a certain amount of time, then we have to model that, right? So what does that look like? It could be a challenge. Let's do a social media detox challenge within our homes. So
Mhm.
let's say around maybe 6 to 7 o'clock, we don't have our phones. It's a phone free zone, time zone, right? And from 6 to 7, but we're not just sitting around doing nothing. We open up the space for conversation or an activity that we all like to do. Or this week, today, we're doing an activity that you like to do. And then this week or today, we're going to do an activity that I like to do. So not only are you building the uh, the non-existence of the phone, you're also bridging that relationship. You're building those connections, not just with without the phones, but actually, and then they're genuine and they're authentic, right? And we're able to show up in our spaces authentically. That's what I wanted to say. Inez, did you want to chime in on that?
No, that's pretty much that's good. Yeah, just making it a family thing. And I know sometimes there's situations that you're in where, okay, let me give them my phone, at church or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Have to
Mm-hmm.
take initiative and let's put something educational on here. So during these times, you can be on this phone, but you're going to do these things. You're gonna do this word game. This something that they'll get something out of it. It's so yeah. Just make a kind of put borders on things and or like I said, do something outside of something recreational where everybody's involved.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would even challenge to say, even during moments where it seems boring for the child to be there, and we feel guilty sometimes as
Mhm.
parents dragging our kids to these events, I would even say bring an activity book.
Yep.
Don't have the phone. Bring that activity book. And then, sometimes we don't want to reward them with things all the time, but rewards help. They really do. So that's the reality of it. Reward them. Tell them how proud you are. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be a tangible thing. Just knowing that they made you proud in that moment is enough. And then that shows that you acknowledge the work that they're doing. So sometimes you don't, there are alternatives to screens. So I know it's been our 30 minutes. We're a little bit past, so I don't want to belabor the hour. And this doesn't stop. So today we learned that what looks like mood swings or behavior challenges often connects to real biological and emotional overload, sorry, happening in our teens. So this conversation, like I said, it doesn't stop here. It continues through the rest of the Beyond the Screen series. So at I Speak For You Now, we also create spaces through our socially savvy teen programs, our summer digital detox retreats, and partnerships with schools and community organizations to help strengthen conversations that's already happening. So we have our the rest of our series coming up there once a month on the last Saturday of every month. February 28th, March 28th, April 25th, and May 30th. I encourage you to go to the description in this video and register because this conversation is necessary. So stay connected to us, with us, register for the upcoming sessions, and continue showing up for our teens. Thank you for being a part of our conversation today. Inez, thank you for your expertise, and we will talk to you soon. Again, if you want to stay connected, look in the description and you will see not only my information, but Inez's information as well. Thank you. See you on the next workshop. Have a great day.